Hello and welcome to Jolineknitsalot. This is my show about knitting and crafting and the things I get up to here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that I'm safe in saying that the snow is mostly melted. So that's really good news. We're still waiting for like the really warm weather, and on the few days we've had where the sun feels really warm, everyone goes crazy and starts running or wearing shorts or biking. Here in Edmonton, we appreciate the warmer weather when we get it. So people get outside as soon as they possibly can. I have been knitting away on some seasonal and unseasonal things, I guess. Why don't I show you some of the things that I've finished? One of them is right there. Should we start with him? Okay. This is my Professor Fungi from the Mystery Gnome Along. Now, I have confessed to you that I had never gnomed before, but having now gnomed, I can see myself gnoming in the future. This was such a fun little project. Why don't I show you my finished Professor Gnome? Here he is. Don't be jealous, Blue. He would never take your place. So this is Professor Fungi. He's a little gnome who studies fungi, presumably, in the forest. Isn't he adorable? Now, I guess I'll talk a little bit about my experience on this knit along. The instructions for this knit along were amazing, and anything that I didn't understand, there was always a helpful video. Most of the techniques were things that I had done before. There was a specific increase that I hadn't done before and I really liked, so I learned that. That was fun. I also learned how to do a pinhole, a really easy pinhole increase, although I could have snugged mine up a little bit more on the bottom there. And every few days I would get a little clue. The one thing I would say is that the clues were sort of not evenly distributed in terms of how much work you had to do. So sometimes you did 10 rounds, and sometimes you did the feet, the nose, the beard, the arms, the little basket, and the handle. So it was not necessarily evenly distributed, but the project itself came together so nicely, and I really appreciate the videos that the designer did. This is from Imagine Landscapes. They're the videos on finishing, so how to stuff your gnome. That was super helpful for me, especially because she did one specific to this gnome. This gnome has a little something to keep him sturdy on the bottom, and then he is stuffed in a specific way, and then there is another form right here to keep him sturdy as his little mushroom hat. So all of the little tips and techniques that she showed in the video were very, very helpful. Because I hadn't gnomed before, I didn't really know much about sewing the pieces on, and so all of her videos on the assembly were also super helpful. I tacked down this bag so it's like attached to his hand so it's not going to fall off, and I tacked down his little elbow here so that it's sort of in place, but this hand is a little bit more free-forming. And I do have some pipe cleaners from when I made a frog for my nephew. I might stick a picture of Froggy here somewhere. And they might be fun in future to stick in the little I-cord arms, because that would make him a little bit more posable. Also, I think people have used like floristry wire. I think that's what it's called. So if you have the kind of wire that holds flowers up, it's quite thin but very strong. So that might be something I could use too. But overall, this was such a fun project. The instructions were very helpful. I think my favorite part was when I got to here and I sort of stuck this little form in to make his hat, and then I stuffed his little mushroom cap. He's got a little hat topper there. It was so much fun watching him come together, and then seaming him up. The instructions were very helpful. So having never gnomed, number one, I think I did a pretty good job of creating a little professor. And I think I might gnome again. I could see myself making some of the little ones. I really like the one that has socks and a stripy hat, so I might make a couple of those. But overall, the professor is very adorable. And I'm really happy with the colors I chose, which were very in keeping with the ones she suggested. So she did suggest like natural tones. Hers, I think, were less contrast than mine, but this is what I had in stash. And so I was really happy also to use up stash. I did use white for the hands and the nose and the beard. And in her explanation for why, or I guess the assembly, the designer was sharing that she started making gnomes in a time when she was dealing with seasonal depression. And so she would start making gnomes and bring them out when the snow flew. And so she saw these gnomes as like little winter creatures. And so to her, they are snowy. And so the white beard and nose were sort of in keeping with that. Yeah, such a fun project. Really, I loved the mystery element of it. He's adorable. I'm not sure where he's going to live. He might go in my cupboard here somewhere. He might guard my stash, or he might just live on my desk. I'm not entirely sure yet. But again, all of the tips in terms of stuffing and giving him sort of a solid base. So there is some stuffing in here that isn't fluffy stuff. I used some lentils because that's what I had in my cupboard. I was originally going to use beans, but the designer suggested something smaller just to give it more, I guess, to be a little bit more dense, but also to, to not have any noise, because the lentils are really kind of packed well in there, but also they take the shape of the gnome quite nicely. So this is Professor Fungi. He is my mystery gnome, and I do think that I might be signing up for the next mystery gnome along, which I guess happens in October. I need to write that in my bullet journal so that I remember to look for the next gnome in this collection. Now, Professor Fungi is a little larger than I suspected he would be when I started. Not that that's a problem. I don't mind at all. I think he's adorable, and I will find a place on my shelf for him. And if you also were working away at the mystery gnome, I would love to see yours. So send me a link or let me know if you partook and how it went for you. Now, I sent my daughters some pictures of the professor when he was done. I like to play with his little beard tendrils. And my one daughter was like, because I was showing her all the little bits, and she's like, I think those are feet. And she was right. But my other daughter said, why does he have a spider on his face? And I hadn't thought of that, but now when I look at it, it does kind of look like a spider, like if you don't look at the arms, just this head and some legs. So now when I look at it, I have to like force myself to not think of a spider on his face. But he's very sweet. And I could see myself gnoming again. So that is Professor Fungi. I'll just place him here for now. Again, using the lentils on the bottom of this gentleman, because he does kind of have quite a hat on him. The lentils really give him support. Like, he is not tippy at all. He's quite solid. So that is a win in my book. The other thing that I finished in the last couple of weeks was my April Colorwork Cuff Club socks. The Colorwork Cuff Club you're familiar with now is a year-long monthly subscription by Summer Lee, who I adore. And these are my April socks. These are the April showers. And we're hoping they bring May flowers. I just use leftovers again. I'm really big into using yarn that I have lying around. This is some gathering yarn in, I think, the Homestead base, which is a wool and hemp blend. And then this is some Sheepy's Metropolis. I was going to say something else, but no, this is Sheepy's Metropolis in the Philadelphia colorway, and I had only a little bit left. And then this is some West Yorkshire Spinners in the Milk Bottle colorway, which is kind of a standard for me. I keep a skein of it or two on hand because I'm always using white sock yarn for something, particularly stripes. But these are done and adorable. And now I'm already looking forward to the May socks. And I know I have a couple weeks to go. And that is all of the projects that I have off my needles this week. Before I get into what I've been working on, I would like to tell you that today I am wearing my Shift Again cardigan. This is a pattern by Andrea Mallory. It was a long time in development. It took her a while to figure out how to make this sweater, because in the end, this one is a Colorwork sweater worked in the round, which is slightly different than her other shifty projects. The other shifty ones tend to be mosaic knitting, so slipping some stitches and knitting some stitches. But for the cardigan, she found that Colorwork was what worked best. So it is steeked, as you can see, and yeah, I used Magpie Fibers in the Nest colorway in this, I think it's called Bougie Beaver. And that's a sort of peachy color background. And then the contrast color is a huge, turns out, huge skein of handspun that I purchased from the Fiber Goddess years ago at a Knit City in Vancouver. And I have used this yarn. I have used it in several projects, and I still have probably over 50 grams left as I'm looking for it in my stash. Maybe not 50, but I still have yarn left. It was a massive hank that I bought from her, and I just love it. It's sort of, if I show you this, it's sort of blues and greens, and sometimes it's like these sort of more tealy colors. There's some navy tones, and then there's some even like sort of more Kelly green, or, you know, more true green colors on the sleeves in various places. Anyway, this cardigan I don't wear enough, so I pulled it out today because I thought the colors were a little bit springy, but it is quite warm and I need it on a day like today. So that's what I'm wearing. But let me show you what I've been working on. Now, I'm sorry to break it to you, but we are deep in the midst of some volleyball tournaments. There's at least 3 more tournaments to go, and that means some plain sock knitting, probably plain sock knitting. I may break out some other plain knitting, but honestly, knitting really helps me get through these stressful tournaments. Having said that, I'm talking about my younger daughter here. The last tournament they had, they were really successful. They had a great tournament, and that was amazing to see. And I did finish a sock. So this is a sock from my husband. I used some West Yorkshire spinners. Let me show you the ball band. This is West Yorkshire spinners. This colorway is called J, and it is part of their bird series. So they have a whole series on colorwork for different birds. And we do get J's here, mostly gray J's and blue J's. And this is the striping colorwork that just happens out of the ball. And you know what? I use a lot of self-striping sock yarn, but this is more of a self-patterning sock yarn in the sense that it does have some rows of just sort of more interesting colors, and it is a lot of fun to knit. So I knit, I think during the tournament, it was 2 days. So I started just below the ribbing. I tend to knit the ribbing before the tournament starts. And then I knit all the way to the toe. And then I was finished this sock, and there was still a little bit of a game to go. And that was probably a stressful 10 minutes because I had no knitting. But then I picked up the heel and knit the heel at home. So this is an afterthought heel. I picked up some stitches and inserted it afterwards using the same yarn. And I don't always do this, but it is fun to do from time to time. So I'm not showing this very well. Why don't I stick it on a sock blocker? Now this sock is for my husband. So for him, I did 76 stitches on a 2.25 millimeter needle. So that should be fine for him, but it's definitely too big for this sock blocker, as you can see. It's a little bit big. But what I wanted to do is just show you the heel and how the heel turns out. So when it's on, you can see the stripes just sort of blend in and form this sort of, I call it a bullseye around the heel, but it's just the striping, the way it works out. And it is fun to use the same color. As I said, I often will switch out colors for the heel cuffs and toes, but every once in a while I do like to do an afterthought heel and have this sort of effect. Partly because I would like to use as much of this yarn as I can. So I have cast on the ribbing for the second sock, and this is all ready for the next volleyball tournament, which is actually going to happen next weekend. And then there's one the weekend after that. So I'm sort of planning on what socks or plain knitting I will be working on in the next little while. So I have one sock to work on, and I do have some further sock plans, which I will show you sort of towards the end of the show. I've been working on two other projects. One of them is just a sweet little t-shirt. Now this t-shirt though is not the quick and breezy knitting project that I thought it would be. So I'm working on the Vellichor by Andrea Mowry. This is what a finished project looks like. And I'm using some Sandness yarn, and this is the Tin Lena. Oh, that's a good picture of the label. This yarn has 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen. It is incredibly soft, and I think you can see it's got a little bit of a sheen to it, which is probably from the viscose, I'm guessing. And the drape is lovely. The one thing I will say about this yarn is that, I'm not sure how well you can see that, but it is a little bit splitty. It's not a very well, it's not that it's not well, it's just sort of a loosely spun yarn, which is not picking up on my camera, but I would like to show you the knitting that I'm working on. And this pattern is lovely, but there is not a single round that is just plain knitting. You're either working some knits and purls, or you're slipping some stitches and knitting and or purling, or working some twisted stitches. So let me show you what that looks like. So it's a really interesting pattern. And as you can see, I've got all three colors sort of in the mix now. I work a few garter ridges in the alternating sort of taupey natural color and the light blue. And then every so many ridges I add in this bright green. So it is a really interesting pattern. And then there's always these columns of twisted cables. It's a right twist, which is not really a cable. You don't have to move the stitches around. And the description in the pattern is very, very clear. But you can see that every row is it's got something going on. So this isn't the quickest and easiest knitting. I will say that the fabric has got a beautiful drape. Like it's just really, really lovely. And I think that it's going to be a great summer t-shirt. Also very washable because of the contents of this yarn. So it'll be interesting to see how it wears after a few washes. But I think right now, I'm really happy with the product. But I will say that this pattern with all of the twisted stitches is a little bit tricky with this splitty yarn. And it's not the yarn's fault necessarily. It's just that it is not a very tightly spun yarn compared to something like the Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino. Now I recognize that's a very different sort of fiber blend, but that is a quite firmly twisted yarn. And so I do not find that one splitty at all. I think I will really like the finished t-shirt, especially I think the colors that I chose were fun, and the drape and the softness of the yarn are really great. But I'm finding it a little bit, not a slog, but it's definitely not a mindless knit. I do have to be paying attention to what I'm doing each round, and also I have to be watching what I'm doing. So it's not something that I can just sort of knit and go on autopilot. I can't knit and read at the same time for this project. And I can't necessarily, depending on what I'm watching on TV, if I'm trying to pay attention to what's happening on the screen, this isn't the best project. So while I'm enjoying working on it, it is going slower than perhaps a plain stockinette stitch project would. And I suppose that's to be expected. I'm not sure why I expect something else from it. This is the knitting, that it's a more complicated pattern. Not that it's difficult. I don't think it's a difficult pattern, but there is more going on in every round. So I do have to pay attention, and maybe that's good for me to pay attention. The last thing that I've been working on is just a little something. And let me show you where I'm at with this little whimsical project. So this is the 2x2 panty, a pattern that I found basically by looking up other projects that had been knit with the Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino. I had knit my Flipside tee that I wore last time. Maybe I'll pop a picture so you can see. It's really cute and I really like it. But I had a skein and a half of this yarn left over and I wanted to use it. So I was looking at what patterns there were on Ravelry for small amounts. One of them was a Sophie scarf, and now I love a Sophie scarf. There seems to be some controversy. Some people think it's a silly little thing. I think it's fabulous. I think it's a great little accessory, and I love to tie one on. I have two. I have one in silk and linen, which is nice for the warmer weather months. And then I have one that I did with two different colored Kiviot, which is definitely a luxury fiber. And that one is really nice for warmer weather. So I think it's a great accessory. And in fact, I sort of sometimes think about making them in more colors, but I didn't necessarily need another pink Sophie scarf for warmer weather. So the other pattern that I found for this yarn in small quantities was the 2x2 panty. Now, I have knit, okay, full confession time. I have knit underwear in the past. In fact, I don't know if I've told you this, but there was one year where I convinced some friends and I to knit underwear for my other friend's birthday. She didn't know about it. And we knit 7 different pairs of underwear. A lot of them were thongs. I don't know if she ever wore any of them, but I have knit underwear in the past. Now this underwear, it's ribbed, it's quite stretchy, and there's lots of different sizes. So the knitting of it so far has been very easy. As you can see, this has got a lot of stretch. This is a lot of stretch. But what I haven't done yet, because this is a work in progress, is I haven't done the waistband. Now the waistband involves picking stitches up all along the top edge, and then I work basically a tube all the way around, and then I insert some elastic inside. Now I managed to pick up some elastic. The elastic that I bought is, I think, 16 millimeters. So I'm not sure if that's the ideal width for this underwear, but I'm gonna start knitting the waistband and I'll see how we get. I did have a hard time finding elastic. I went to a couple different fabric stores in my neighborhood. Not even in my neighborhood, in my city. One of them was Fabricland, which is a very sort of common chain, and they did not have a lot of elastic. And then I went to another fabric store called Marshall's, which is a very large fabric store. And that was kind of a fun little field trip for me, partly because while I was looking for elastic for this underwear, I stumbled upon a section of ribbon that was really, really beautiful, and I really regret not taking a picture. So while I was at Marshall's, I stumbled upon a whole collection of beautiful ribbons that are intended to make ribbon skirts. And while I was there were people purchasing fabric and ribbons to make their own ribbon skirts. So I thought I would share the tradition of the ribbon skirt with you if it's not something that you're familiar with. This information that I will be reading to you is from the ribbonskirtproject.ca. And this is a little bit of sort of the significance of a ribbon skirt. If you're not familiar with what a ribbon skirt is, here's a couple pictures so that you can have some frame of reference. And this website says, for Indigenous peoples, the ribbon skirt represents our own personal reclamation. It represents reclaiming identity and wearing that identity proudly. It has become armor. It is a cultural protection against assimilation and degradation. It is a reminder of our roles in our community as women and as members. It reminds us of our sacredness as women and the power in that. It tells our story of adaptation and survival. So I have seen women wearing beautiful ribbon skirts to fancy events or just out and about in their everyday lives. And they're so beautiful and unique to each person. And so I thought I'd share a little bit of that with you today. The ribbons I saw at Marshall's were stunning. So if you're ever looking to buy ribbon for a ribbon skirt, please check out Marshall's. Really beautiful, colorful selection. And I'm really regretting that I didn't take a picture of all those amazing ribbons. So I have 2 more things that I wanted to share with you this week that sort of came into my life. Unexpectedly, I will say. Well, the one thing, my older daughter is a dancer. I'm sure I've told you this before. And she dances with a Ukrainian dance group here in Edmonton. She was volunteering at their recent dance festival. And so I told her I'd meet her there because often there are vendors selling different Ukrainian things. Sometimes it's dance related items. Sometimes it's Ukrainian embroidery or things for the home. Sometimes it's Ukrainian vyshyvanki, which are the embroidered blouses that you might see. And in this case, a friend of mine was vending. I had no idea that she would be there. And she was selling denim jackets, sort of embossed or appliqued with various different sort of Ukrainian fabrics and textiles. And so I bought one and my younger daughter bought one. My older daughter bought one, the dancer. Now, hers is downstairs and she's still asleep. But I wanted to show you mine because, for one thing, I think this is an amazing piece. I've been looking for a new denim jacket, which is what I have. And to have one that was made by a friend and that is sort of speaks to me and to my culture or to my heritage meant a lot to me. So I wanted to show you this beautiful denim jacket. And the colors and the different fabrics represent different regions of Ukraine and different costumes that you might see dancers wearing. And I just thought she did a beautiful job. There's some embroidery here, some ribbons actually, which is interesting that I was just talking about ribbon skirts. But so you can see the combination of fabrics all put together in this beautiful denim jacket that just looks like this in the front. So yeah, I was so happy to see her there, to see the work that she'd done and to support her in that. So her label says, upcycled by Lemonade, made with new and vintage materials, and some washing instructions. I just thought I'd show you her label in case she ever gets a website together. Now, as far as I know, this is a new venture for her and she's just getting into it, but I hope to see her at many more dance related events in the future. There will be more. There's one at the end of May. I'll tell you right now. I'll also let you know if my kid's dancing, because if she's dancing, I will be there. So this really cool denim jacket that was upcycled with amazing ribbons and fabrics on the back. I just wanted to share that with you because that was pretty cool. And it was something that my friend created. I was so proud of her. And the last thing I wanted to show you is my next cast on. As I was saying, we're really hot into volleyball season and I need some plain knitting. So I'm going to be winding up this sock set by That Yarn Habit. I happened to visit That Yarn Habit not that long ago when I was in Grand Prairie for a volleyball tournament go figure. And she had these Oilers sock sets. These sock sets are quite generous. So these two colors, the two kind of main colors of the Oilers are 56 gram skeins, and they have 212 yards or 196 meters of an 80% superwash and 20% nylon base. And then this little one is a 22 gram skein with 85 yards or 77 meters. The colors are Dirty Denim, Clementine, and Parchment. So I'll be casting on some relatively plain socks, probably for my husband. My plan is, if I have enough yarn, fingers crossed. So this is my plan. My plan is to do like a cuff, a fairly deep cuff with this parchment color, with a stripe of the orange and then back to the parchment, and then knit some plain blue for a bit, and then stick in an orange heel, and then knit the foot in the blue, and then stick in an orange toe. And then I'm going to weigh that sock. And then if I have enough, I would do the second sock the same. And if I don't have enough, then the second sock will be a cuff with the parchment and the stripe of the blue, and then back to the parchment, and then orange with a heel in blue, orange foot, heel, or toe in blue. Now, 200 yards, 196 meters for a men's pair of socks. I think I should be able to do it. The only thing I will need to remember is to keep the leg quite short in the blue. We will see. I'm going to have to be weighing it after the first sock, and then I will know what I can do for the second sock. But I think that is going to be a great way to use up quite a bit of this Oilers sock set. And it's just in time for hockey playoff season to start. Playoffs are starting anytime now. So if you're looking for some stressful sport viewing, you can start watching the Stanley Cup playoffs. There will be so much hockey on TV for the next little while, at least around here, at least as long as our team's doing well. If our team doesn't do well, we probably won't watch as much hockey, in full disclosure. So those are all of the little things that I have been working on and my plans for the future. I'm happy to share a couple things that I ran into, like that unexpected ribbon haul. That was really, really beautiful. And now I know where to find those ribbons. They're beautiful. And then to see my friend and the work that she's doing and to be able to support her was great too. So I hope in the next couple of weeks you find time to seek out some culture in your neighborhood and to do the things you like to do. I know I plan on knitting a lot. Take care, and I will see you soon.